What's up? I think we are going live right now.
Are we live?
We are going live right now. Here we go. We are,
Live.
I think we are live.
Let me slide over.
Let Beth slide over so y'all can see her. There's something missing from this video that's normally in this video. It's not here today. We're not going to tell you what it is.
But if you know,
But if you notice,
post it on Facebook.
let us know. Yeah.
We'll give you a Starbucks gift card if you notice.
If you notice what's always in this video, but it's no longer in this video, then we'll let you in on that.
We'll buy you a cup of coffee. Get Starbucks gift card.
That's right. We'll hook you up. Life giving life. This is the last session, isn't it?
Yes,
This is the last one.
This is it.
So
forgiveness. Going out with a bang.
Bam. Forgiveness. That's what we're going to be talking about tonight.
Mm-hmm.
Whoa. That's not cool.
Why?
That's a hard one.
Oh.
I'm just checking the feed to make sure the feed's live because we were having problems.
Yeah, we were
the last time that we tried. Looks like it's live. The best place to watch it is going to be on YouTube Live. There's a YouTube Live channel that you can watch it. There's a link there. I'm going to repost it on Facebook just to make sure that others have an option to get it to it. So here we are. My name's Jeff Moody, and this is my wife,
Beth.
Beth Moody. She took my last name. How about that? If you don't know us, if you do know us, hopefully you've enjoyed these sessions. You've gone back and looked at our YouTube channel. Been very informal sessions here that we're doing about living a life-giving life. This one is crucial to living a life-giving life.
Hey, I just wanted to say something too. These videos that we've done, because we're doing it in a small group setting, these are not planned out. Jeff and I have not discussed in any of the videos what we were going to talk about. I mean, like how it's going to go down. We chose a topic and
just kind of roll with it.
Yeah, there was no like preparation really involved. You know, we might have looked up a few verses or something prior to that, but we just wanted you to know that we will be putting something together a little bit more formal for marriages.
Finishthemarriage.com. Finishthemarriage.com. Let me take a moment to promote that. Okay, is that what you were doing?
Oh, yeah, and I just wanted them to know if they wanted, like, it's going to be about the marriage, but really it can help you anywhere that you are in your life and in your walk with Christ.
And it's going to be free. Finish the Marriage is going to be all free for now.
But it's going to be a little more formal.
It's going to be a little more formal with a little more teaching, practical information, and then application. We're going to give you information about the marriage. We're really going to try to do these video teaching segments in 15 minutes or less. I would imagine that most of them would be 7 to 10 minutes, and then possibly up to 15 if I'm leading it.
Right. These, the small group, the difference is, so that you're not confused, is there's a lot of rambling and just kind of, sometimes we get on a goat rope and go a whole different direction in the small group.
Rope.
Yeah, but whereas in the Finish the Marriage, it'll be on point and on topic.
There's a lot of preparation going into Finish the Marriage. We're planning the topics that we'll be speaking on. We're going to be speaking on how to have a life-giving marriage, but starting with the very, very, very basics and what it means to be married, and the call to holy matrimony, something we've been very passionate about for a long time. But
that'll probably start this summer.
Yeah, we're working on that. If you want to help us, and then we'll jump into the session. If you want to help us get that off the ground sooner than later, then I need you to get people to go to finishthemarriage.com and register. It's all free. Everything is free. Our vision is that we'll have a paid class at some time, but for now, our stuff is all going to be free. We're going to be giving practical, easy to understand, relevant to where you are, as information that you can apply to your marriage starting today, and even more resources. We're going to be doing interviews with some much more popular people than ourselves. We really have a big vision for this Finish the Marriage thing. We're going to be traveling around the United States, teaching some of our material and our content. It's just going to be a ton of fun. FinishTheMarriage.com. We believe this. Here's our slogan about it: is that every marriage has a start, but some don't have a finish.
Yeah, or they do finish, just not successfully.
Yeah.
So, and
But really only a few finish.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
ending a marriage isn't finishing a marriage.
No.
So
We want to teach people how to finish strong, how not just to go through the motions of
that's right.
life.
Finish
But
what
finish
God
strong.
called you to
Right.
start. That's right.
Right. Okay. So the first thing that we're going to talk about in forgiveness is I just want to tell you that you can Google scriptures on forgiveness, and
There are a million?
they are so many verses. There's so much, and I guess this is because God knew that this was going to be an area.
God or Google?
No, the Bible. I mean,
Oh.
there's a lot of scriptures in the
That's
Bible about it. So what I'm saying is God knew that this was going to be something that his people were going to struggle with.
Yeah.
So therefore, he gave us a lot of different types of scriptures. And the first one I want to talk about is what is called conditional scriptures. And that is, if you do this, I'll do this. And I'm just going to point out three very quickly. But Matthew 6:12 says, "Forgive us the wrongs that we have done, as we forgive the wrongs others have done to us." Okay?
That's conditional.
That's conditional. And then Luke 6:37 says, "Forgive, and you will be forgiven." And then Matthew 6:14 through 15 says, "For if you forgive men when they sin against you, your heavenly Father will forgive you also. But if you do not forgive men their sins, your Father will not forgive you your sins." So
That's pretty strong.
it is strong, and it's a pretty important topic
Yeah.
because we all want to be forgiven by God.
Time out. Yeah. Were you done? I just
Yeah,
jumped
go
into
ahead.
time
No, go
out.
ahead.
So let me just ask this question. If you're watching this right now, how many of you can remember a time, or maybe you're in that time right now, or know of a time where you really wanted somebody to forgive you? Like you truly wanted to own the mistake. And I think sometimes too, this is just me speaking, that sometimes we think to be forgiven means there is sin, and not all things that are forgiven are sin. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
Sometimes I could hurt your feelings, and I would just want you to forgive me for that, because it wasn't my intention to exclude you or to hurt your feelings. So, but I want to ask, how many of you really just remember a time where you just want to be, man, I just want them to forgive me, and I want this thing to be right, this thing being the relationship? If you can, maybe hit the space bar right now. But, I was thinking about that. I was at a conference last week with some of our staff and their families, and we was having a really good time. And we were talking about this deal that this is for me. I don't know about for you, but for me, I truly, the one thing that I want to be forgiven for is if I ever hurt somebody, and I want it to be brought to my attention that how I hurt them. That idea just crushes me. Like that'll keep me up at night if somebody says you hurt them. Now, if it was some illegitimate stuff going on and I hurt their feelings because I held them to a standard, that's not what I'm talking about. I'm talking about if I said something about your family that was taken out of context, or if I deliberately cut you off in traffic, or if you think I walked by you one Sunday and didn't speak to you, and I say that laughing because that hurts people's feelings. That's not my mojo, man. That's not what I'm about. And if I think I've hurt your feelings, there's nothing more that I want than you to forgive me, because I want to say, man, I'm wrong. I'm sorry. So I don't know if you've been there before, but how many of you have ever really, think about it for just a moment, wanted somebody else to forgive you? Like, please forgive me. Now I want to reverse the thing and say, how many of you have ever really wanted to forgive somebody?
Yeah. And I think that's the area that we all struggle with. I think that it is easier to ask people for forgiveness than it is to actually forgive people for most.
Mhm.
Would you say? I mean, like through conversations that we've had since we've been in ministry. It just
Well,
seems
I
like-
don't know. I would probably disagree on that, because asking for forgiveness means implying or admitting that you're wrong. And
Yeah.
that seems to be one of the hardest things I've ever seen anybody do in my life, not just in ministry. When I was in the Air Force, there would be times where people were blatantly wrong, and getting them to admit that was just some of the most challenging things in the world. So I don't know. I think it's about 50-50 for me. Asking for forgiveness probably happens as much as receiving forgiveness. I'll tell you, one of the craziest things in the world to do, though, is don't ever tell somebody they've been forgiven of something that they don't know they did. Like, that's kind of crazy. That's happened to me before recently.
And don't bully people with that either.
Yeah, that spiritual bullying.
Yeah, be careful that you, because I think that people often will say you were wrong by saying you're forgiven, and that is spiritual bullying, and that is not of God. I mean, it's not.
Yeah, it's not. And spiritual bullying is almost like saying that you're forgiving them, or vice versa, going the other way and like kind of withholding the forgiveness. And that's spiritual bullying, because the truth of the matter is, we're called to forgive people.
Mm-hmm.
But it's not clear in here that we're called to announce to anybody that we've forgiven them.
Right.
Right.
Right. And I think too, in the situation that you were talking about, you can't forgive someone on behalf of someone else. Like, that is just, you cannot do that.
So if Beth hurts somebody's feelings in the church, then
Hannah can't come and say,
I'm going to please forgive Beth.
Right.
Or Beth, right.
Yeah.
Is that what you're talking about?
Yeah, it just don't work. I mean, like, if that person needs forgiveness, or if they want to forgive you, then that needs to be between you two. You can't forgive someone on behalf of someone else. So that's.
I like how you talk about the conditional forgiveness, and I want to talk about that. Are you going to get deeper in that, or into another segment of forgiveness? Okay.
Yeah.
I wanted to touch on that forgiveness and say that forgiveness, number one, my kind of just coming from me tonight is, it's not always sin just because you forgive somebody. So don't get wrapped up in that idea that you must have sinned in order to need forgiveness. Now, God forgives sins, but when we're talking about this conditional forgiveness,
we're talking about, like, okay, say this used to be a common occurrence in our house. It's not so much anymore, but Jeff would get up in the middle of the night and he would drink the last bit of milk. And I would need milk in the morning for my children. And
it's not sinful.
It's not sinful, but he would have to say, "Oh, I'm sorry. You forgive me for drinking all the milk." It was something that needed forgiveness.
Yeah. Beth needed to forgive me. Yeah.
Yeah.
You did.
For
drinking the milk. Why are you laughing? You have to give me the forgiveness, because according to conditional forgiveness, God can't forgive her.
Right.
And that is so true. And I want to say this before I throw it back over to Beth, is that I do still get up and drink the milk.
Not the last of the milk.
I don't.
You make sure we have milk for the kids.
The last time I think I drank the last milk, I actually got up before anybody, and I went to Starbucks, and I went by the grocery store or the gas station and got like a little thing of milk just to get them through it. And she says it's for the kids, but I think it's for her coffee. Because she drinks a little bit of coffee with a whole lot of milk. But that's not here nor there. Here's the deal. I want to tell you something about forgiveness. And you got to hear this as we go forward. And Beth, I'm going to pass it back over to you.
Okay.
I'm telling you that when you forgive somebody, it's really got nothing to do. It's all about them. It really is all about forgiving them and what they did to you. But forgiving them, it will never advance them like it'll advance you. Never. It'll just be something to them. It'll be everything to you. It'll be a light load lifted off of them. It'll be a heavy load lifted off of you when you forgive somebody.
Right.
And that's true forgiveness. That's a heart transaction. It's not a business transaction. It's not a lunch. It's not a conversation. It's not even the words.
Yeah, and that's something else I was going to say too. Forgiveness is not going to the person and saying, "I forgive you."
No, that's pride.
Yes, that is prideful. A lot of times someone can hurt you and they never know that they hurt you, and there's really no reason that they even need to know that they hurt you, but you have to find it in your heart.
Yeah.
You don't have to go say, "Hey, I forgive you." That's that too can be a bit of spiritual bullying and prideful, and it's just it's not necessary. But we're going to move right on into something that I've struggled with in the past is denial forgiveness, and that is where you've blocked it out of your mind. So forgetting is not forgiving. Because what happens when you are stuck in this whole denial or avoiding the situation so that you don't have to forgive, or you just kind of put that in a different place in your heart where it's not touched very often, or a different place in your mind so it's not thought of very often, is when something comes up and it reminds you of that situation or that person, that all that bitterness comes back to light. So it's important that first you forgive and then you forget. Do you ever really forget? No, but you can put it behind you. But I think that it's important that the forgiveness takes place first. And I'm going to read another scripture out of Psalms. It's real short. 51:6 says, "Behold, you desire truth in the innermost being."
That's what Psalms 51:6.
Yeah.
That's so funny that we didn't even talk about this. And I'm just gonna turn to my phone right here, and I'm gonna show you what verse I'm going to be reading from tonight. Psalm 51.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, I'm not going to be in verse 6, but I'm actually reading the whole Psalm 51 on Sunday, which is really neat.
Yeah.
It's really good. That's a God thing.
Yeah. So I do think that that it's very important that we forgive before we actually even try to move past, because you're still going to have that yuckiness inside. And like I said, and our pastor back in Alabama taught us just a touch on this when we were going through like a transition with another church, and he saw a picture and he just made the comment. He said, "I've really got to work on this forgiveness thing," and that was big for me, because I thought, it really kind of put it into it just made it real that. Yeah, he thought he had forgiven, but then he realized that he didn't, and he didn't make it about the other person. He made it about himself. Like, I need to work on this, not they need to do something, but it was all about his heart. And, I think that you asked him, how are you going to do that? And he said, I'm just going to have to pray for him more. He said,
yeah, and he actually ended up having I walked through some of that with him. He actually had the conversation. And I think this is a good place to inject my thought about something. And when it comes to forgiveness is this, that if you need to forgive somebody, can I just tell you this, that there's going to be a mark, there's going to be a scar, there's going to be something in this world that's always going to remind you of what the other person did to you every time, whether it's a Facebook picture, a song. I talk to married people all the time, do counselings with them, and they'll say, just one song just reminds me of this one time and this one thing. And I'm like, dude, you're never going to erase the song from the face of the earth, especially if it was a top 10 song. But there'll always be a scar. And I don't know exactly where it's at in the Gospels, but you can find this place where Jesus uses the scars of the time where they killed him. They kill him, and he's been buried. He's in the grave, and he resurrects from the grave. And he comes back and he visits some of the disciples and the apostles, and he says, Thomas, he knew that Thomas was going to say, if that's really you, show me the scars. But I don't think Thomas, this is just me speaking, I don't think Thomas wanted to see the scars to see the pain that had been inflicted on Jesus. I think he wanted to see the scars, not to prove even really that it was Jesus, but to emphasize and to highlight and to magnify the forgiveness that had been received. So when you see the mark, if you've got something going on tonight, and we're going to talk about it, we'll give you some take homes and some things to do, or at least I am going to give you a couple of things to do tonight when you leave. But man, don't let the scars be something that bring back rage and anger and anxiety. Let the scars bring back the joy and the peace that's found in forgiveness.
Right. And I know that there's different relationships that are going to require a different type of follow through when you're talking about forgiveness. If it's your spouse, it's probably not something that's just going to have to be left undone. It's probably going to have to be a conversation, or if it's a close family member, or if there is reconciliation that's needed because of a relationship or something like that, then it probably is going to warrant a conversation. And that's my opinion.
Yeah, I totally agree. I think most times that's the case. And I think this is very important that you catch that forgiveness starts in the heart, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And that can happen at any time, at any place, during any season for you. You start the forgiveness process in the heart. But when you start bringing that forgiveness process to a tangible, others can see it, others can hear it, others can feel it, you need to be very cautious that the time is right, that the approach is right, that the environment is right, that all the other pieces of the forgiveness element are good and ready to go.
Yeah.
Like, why are you doing it? Where are you doing it? How are you doing it? You know that, listen, I want to talk about this forgiveness. If it's, just think about it. Is this the best time to discuss it? Is there an adequate amount of time? Are you free from distractions? Are you rebounding from an argument? Are you over and over? Where are you in the world to make sure that it's not connected to something? And keep it pure. But just remember, it starts here. If it's going to be involving somebody else and it's going to merit some sort of conversation, then it starts here. But when it goes outward and it becomes tangible and you can see it and touch it, it's very important to make sure that that season and that place and that time is right. You don't want to do it on the heat of an argument.
Mm-hmm.
You don't want to do it when that song comes on. You get all ticked off again. You don't want to do it in the middle of that.
Yeah.
You don't want to do it in the middle of frustration. You want to do it out of love. You might even want to plan it. You might even want to say, hey, listen, I'm going to need an hour of time, 30 minutes of designated. If you have kids, man, like after bedtime, something.
Yeah. But if your heart's not pure, don't even go for it.
That's right. Don't even shoot for it.
Don't even go for it. Okay, so the next thing I want to talk about is, I think that sometimes it's not in my notes. So
I'm just looking over here to see what you got going on.
Okay, so I know that sometimes when it's a forgiveness situation, we might be angry and we want the person to pay for, we're like, God, where is your wrath? Where are you in this? We do marriage counseling with people, and a lot of times the other person, all they really want is for that person to pay, or they want someone to pay for the way that they feel or the mistreatment, and they forget that Jesus paid so that person didn't have to pay. And I think sometimes we get so wrapped up on what we can see that we miss what we can't see. So I'm going to read the scripture out of Romans. It's Romans 12:19, and it says, "Do not take revenge, my friends, but leave room for God's wrath. For it is written, it is mine to avenge, I will repay, says the Lord." So don't get so wrapped up in, and sometimes when we get mad at people, we like to spread rumors that aren't true and all that. Don't get wrapped up in that. God will take care of them.
And I'll just time out there and say, even if what you're spreading is true, that's gossip, and that's not good. So, right, it's not good to do that, right? Yeah. And I would say that I've been here before. You've been there. I don't know if you've ever heard that song, or not that song, but that saying that says, "Kill them with kindness." Mm-hmm. And one of the cheesiest things you can do is try to kill them with kindness by faking to forgive them. And saying, listen, I've forgiven you. I'll never forget this. Listen, I got a text message one time from a friend of mine. We're not friends anymore, but I was working a series. It was a Nehemiah series, and I really felt like the Lord said, "There's a few people that I want you to get things right with. Rebuild the wall." That's what Nehemiah is all about. And I was working this series out. And I left Starbucks early one morning. I'd been praying and reading the Word and drinking lots of coffee. And I left that morning and I sent my friend a text message. And I said, I would like to talk about reconciliation of this relationship. I know we haven't spoken in a while. And I'd like to speak to you and just have a conversation. And I got this stupid, silly email back or text message back that said, I have forgiven you for all the bad things you did and said, and none of it was true. And it was like this spiteful, prideful, silly little deal where they were revenging, trying to forgive me, and it was like a revenge piece. And it was like, I'll beat him to forgiveness, and I'll kill him with kindness. And I just decided in my own heart through prayer that, hey, I did my part and it wasn't worth it. The relationship wasn't that valuable. And anyway, and honestly, I'll just be real for a minute. Can I be real for a second? Is it safe to do that? I don't know if it is or not, but I don't have a relationship in this world outside of the one with my wife and the one with my children. There's not a relationship in this world that's worth me salvaging to cause the church or the mission or the vision, the mission that God has put me on to suffer. There's not one. I don't have any. There's none. I have some really good friends I'm in ministry with. But if you're watching, somebody just got off, somebody's logged off right in the middle of that. They were like, check out. There's not a friendship out there that's, if it means me save this friendship and slow down on the mission that God's called me on, there's not one outside of my family.
Yeah, because, in our church, people are getting saved. And,
every week, man.
Every week, people are giving their hearts to Jesus and, turning their lives around. And we've seen so much life that has come through the church that you can't.
Inside of any church, if you're doing something great for God and there's a relationship out there and somebody's kind of dangling that carrot in front of you and saying, if you'll do it this way, if you'll stop doing this or start doing that, then I'll be a part of your deal. Man, listen, there's no forgiveness needed. Cut the string, move on. God's got something greater for you. And that's a side note about forgiveness.
Yeah,
but
that was a goat rope. That's what you call it.
That's what's called a goat rope on forgiveness. Some things you just start here, man, and it stops here. It's over right here at the heart. You don't have to have any fruit of it. I promise you. Go ahead.
Okay. Did you want to read your scripture?
I was going to read mine when it was time to shut her down.
Okay.
What else did you have?
We're getting close.
We are? We got about 2.5, 3 minutes left.
Yeah. I was going to look and see if there was anything else that I needed to cover.
I'll shut her down. And I'll just tell you that for me, one of the most beautiful stories of forgiveness outside of Jesus on the cross. Jesus on the cross is a pretty big picture of Jesus's forgiveness. That's a pretty big deal. But aside from that one, there's stories all in the Bible about forgiveness, tons of them. There's one, I've been talking about the life of David and how David came from shoveling sheep crap to being anointed to be the king, and then he goes back to shoveling sheep crap, and it's just and then he comes back and he whips Goliath's butt. Talking about that, and he's going to become later king of Israel. Going to talk a lot about that this Sunday. But he has a problem, and David makes a terrible mistake. Terrible. That involves, there's multiple, countless, not only sins against God, there's major mistakes against people.
Yeah, and let me say this. Let me interrupt you real quick.
Yeah.
I just did a Bible study. I just led a group of women through a Bible study. Actually, Beth and Kay Arthur and Priscilla Shire led us through it. But one thing that Kay Arthur said, and she was talking about the story of David, is sin will take you further than you ever expected to go.
And it's something else you said. And it'll keep you longer than you ever expected to stay. And it'll hold you tighter than you ever thought it could hold you, something like that. Sin will. I say this to people about sin.
Yeah.
Is if you're not having fun doing it, you're doing something wrong.
Yeah, because David never intended on killing.
Right. And I don't want to get into the story tonight, but one of the most beautiful pictures of forgiveness is that one of David.
Yeah.
King David. He's literally king. And Bible says that David had a heart after he was his heart, his own heart was after God, or he had a heart of God after God, or he was after God's own heart.
He was after God's own heart.
He made some major errors and mistakes, and God forgave him in that. And God sent somebody named Nathan in the deal to tell him, "You've been forgiven."
Gave him Solomon.
Yeah, it's a powerful story. And in Psalm 51, the one you read earlier, I don't know if you knew this or not about that psalm, That happens to be the psalm that David wrote to God. And if you don't know this about Psalms, when the book of Psalms was written, most of it's written by David, and they're songs that he wrote to God in the form of worship. And Psalm 51 is the one that he writes after he's kind of caught up in the marriage affair, and he's done some pretty corrupt things. And he writes this thing, and it's Psalm 51, and I'm not going to read the whole thing, but he says in verse 12, "Restore to me the joy of your salvation and make me willing to obey you." Now, that's a piece of, he's asking for some serious forgiveness here. He's saying, I've done some stupid stuff, and I want what I had that you gave me, God. I want what I had before I did these things. And he says to the Creator, it's pretty impressive when you ask the programmer of you to make you willing to obey him. That's a pretty big deal. And then it says this, I love this. This is how I know forgiveness is not only about you. He says, then I will teach your ways to the rebels, and they will return to you. I love that verse. And then he says, forgive me for shedding blood, O God who saves. Then I will joyfully sing of your forgiveness. Unseal my lips, O Lord, that my mouth may praise you. Are you making me be still?
I'm making you put that chair down because I heard it cracking.
That was this. But you need to forgive me for sitting this chair back. But restore to me the joy of salvation, then I will teach your ways. So listen to me. The first thing that happens after forgiveness is truly experienced is you tell somebody. Not about the crime, not about the pain, not about the conflict,
about the restoration.
But about the restoration.
Yeah.
And it's so fresh to know that that's our God. We learn to forgive by the way God forgave us, and it's like, man, what if that was your prayer today? What if that was your action step? And I'll give you a couple action steps tonight.
Yeah, I'm gonna intervene.
She's gonna intervene right in the middle of this after
Sorry.
she tells me to set my chair down and she's
Sorry.
done. Go
Sorry.
ahead. I forgive you.
Okay. I was just gonna say, because a lot of you are thinking, well, I can't forgive. Like right now you're thinking, well, this person did this to me and I cannot forgive this person. But know that forgiveness is a choice.
It is a choice.
That you decide to forgive or you decide not to forgive.
Mm-hmm.
It is a choice.
Yeah. I've heard people say, well, God dealt me a cruddy hand of life. And he might have dealt you a cruddy hand of life. You may have some corrupt people in your life. You may have been diagnosed with cancer. You may have had a crummy spouse that's neglected you or beat you. You may have had some horrible things happen to you. But God either causes or allows all things to happen. But he gives you a really good choice, a freedom of choice to forgive or not.
Yeah. I mean, I was given a crappy hand of life.
Yeah, and you can't change that. But you can choose to forgive.
Right.
What happened to you.
And I can choose to make something out of myself or live the lifestyle that I was destined to live.
By the circumstances. Not the creator.
Not the creator.
Yeah, good. So here's our takeaway tonight for forgiveness. Number one, just make it a choice in your mind right now. Just say, I'm going to choose to forgive somebody. I'm going to choose that. Or choose to ask for forgiveness. I think some of us need to ask for forgiveness. You say, hey, listen, man, I made a mistake, and I want you to forgive me. And listen, if they never tell you they did forgive you, doesn't matter. Just move on. Make a move on that. And the next thing is this, that I would ask you that tonight, after you make the choice to do it, is that you would really make it here. Make it here. And whatever happens there, because I know, I'm sure, I'm certain, I'm 100% on this. I'm not 100% on many things, but I'm 100% on this. Whatever happens here, I dare you to tell somebody about it. Not about the pain, not about the circumstances, not about the conflict, but about the restoration, about the forgiveness that took place. Tell somebody how it felt. I'm going to leave you with this story. And because I really want you to do it. And we're done with virtual small groups. We may have some virtual stuff we just throw off the fly, so stay tuned. Don't forget to go to finishthemarriage.com and get us help really advertise that for us. Get it out there. We want to get 100 registrants. We're going to host our very first live event. We're going to tell our story and what qualifies. We're going to qualify ourselves, maybe in 2 or 3 segments, to teach on marriage. We're going to do that by sharing about how we've been married, how our marriage is becoming stronger. But here's the story I want to share with you. I had a friend of mine once I just not been in ministry very long, and a friend of mine came to me. I taught a message on forgiveness, and he came to me afterwards, and he said, "Man, I want to tell you some things that happened to me." And he told me some very gruesome, horrible facts about his marriage. He was married. He's been divorced at the time for a year or two, and I don't remember how long. But prior to his divorce, he was married to this woman, and he came home one day, and it wasn't well, man. Somebody else was there, and they were in his bed, and it was just one of the most horrifying deals that he could ever imagine. Like, man, some of the things he saw, things about the day that happened that day triggered those thoughts, and it'd been a couple years. And I was like, dude, why are you telling me all this? And he looked at me and he said, man, while you were talking about forgiveness, I felt like I was supposed to call her and tell her that I'd forgiven her. And I just kind of stayed in my lane on this one. And I was like, well, I didn't tell you to do that. But if God told you to do it, then by all means, pick up the phone and do it, or go see her and do it. And in circumstances like that, you don't have to tell the person that what you're forgiving them for. I think it was pretty evident and clear. But, man, a couple of days later, this guy called me, and he said, man, Jeff, I just want you to know that I did it. I forgave her. And he said, I started to call her, but I hadn't done it here yet. And once I got it done here, I picked up the phone. I made the phone call, and she answered. And he said, I told her. And I said, well, and he said, man, it feels like a dump truck drove off of my body and off of my heart. So I want you to know something, that forgiveness is inside of you. It's a choice that God's given you to make, and I want you to make the decision to do it. You don't have to go as far as making the phone call. You don't have to go as far as going to the person. But I want you to know that when he shared that with me, it made me want to teach more on forgiveness. It made me want to forgive some people. And before we ever started this church in Durham, there were some people that I just made a list. I had to call them and say, listen, I want you to forgive me. So don't only think about who you can forgive. Think about who you can ask to forgive you. That's our closing thoughts. It's 37 minutes into tonight's small group, Live a Life, Giving Life, in the circle of forgiveness. You got any closing thoughts, Bill?
Don't.
Do you forgive me for rocking this chair back? You do. The chair wasn't cracking, by the way. So we're getting out of here. This has been fun. Have you had fun?
It's been good.
Have you had fun? I'd say it's been good.
I have.
Good.
It's been crazy some nights.
It has been crazy. Yeah. I mean, we had Ella screaming a minute ago. I don't know if y'all could hear her, but if you're watching still, we said it earlier in the video. We're going to say it again. If you can tell us what's missing, put it on Facebook. If you don't have Facebook, email me, Jeff@Revival Church, and say, in the virtual small group video, this was missing. Tell us what was missing. We're going to give you a free Starbucks gift card because we love you and you're paying attention. So this was in the previous videos, and it's not. You have until, it's currently Wednesday night, April 29th. You have until Sunday, May 3rd to do this.
Wow, okay.
Until Sunday, the end of Sunday, May 3rd. So midnight, Sunday night, midnight 01, when it's May 4th. May the 4th be with you, Star Wars. That's called a goat rope. Anyway, we love you. Tell them you love them.
Love y'all.
Love y'all. So we love y'all.
We love y'all.
All right, we really do. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next time we have a random virtual life-giving life small group. God bless.
Bye.